Nat, welcome to the ExchangeWire kitchen.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. We're going to have a really interesting discussion today. I'm looking forward to it. But first, the all-important question: what coffee have you chosen?
I've gone for a flat white, regular milk. There's no caramel, frappuccino, ice, latte, pumpkin spice going on here.
Good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, I want a flat white as well.
Nice.
It's lovely late morning coffee. Before we dive into Restless, your new agency, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nat. I'm currently CEO and co-founder at Restless, creative performance agency. But I spent my whole career in the world of digital, and what I really love is packaging up audiences and then working out either how you can monetize it on behalf of an IP owner, publisher, broadcaster, or indeed how you can start to move those audiences for consumer brands so that they sort of take action and buy their product or service. So that's what I spent a lot of time doing. I spent 6 years at DMG Media, which was just a fantastic time with fantastic people. And my responsibility there was kind of monetizing all of their assets on their owned channels. That kind of took me into the world of social media. So I joined Jungle Creations as COO and then latterly co-CEO. And we that was a social agency and a social publisher. So we had studios in-house. And we had, if you remember, sort of the top-down hands-in-pans videos that lived forever on Facebook. They then elevated into face-to-camera, influencer, creator-led content. But yeah, we built that business over 6-7 years, sold that to private equity in August 2021. I then had my first kid in September 2021, so that was a bit of a roller coaster year.
Yeah.
And then after that, I then went to BBC Studios, so the commercial arm of BBC, and responsible for building out their kind of digital proposition for some of the much loved IP like Top Gear, BBC Earth, EastEnders, and Bluey. I don't know if you know Bluey. But
very well. Yeah, for 2-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Indeed, so you know it well.
Yeah.
And then, I guess had my ear to the ground trying to understand what's interesting, what clients need, where the world is going, we've decided to build an AI native creative performance agency, and we launched that 6 months ago, and with a fair wind behind us, it's going very well, and it's been good fun. Excellent.
Well, you've had a busy few years.
Yeah,
that's a lot
indeed,
to fit in, but incredibly interesting as well. You've seen the industry from a lot of different angles.
Yes, yeah. We were just talking about that before. I think coming at it from a few different lenses, be it a media owner that was moving into digital, or a broadcaster or a social media publisher, and now kind of very much agency side. It's interesting to get a sort of diverse take on things.
Yeah, you've got a good 360 view of everything through your career. Restless.
Yes.
6 months old now, an AI native agency. Go on then. What does
that mean?
What is that? What does an AI native agency?
What does it mean? I mean, from my perspective, we were founded in February 2026, right? And so we had a real opportunity to basically define what a new agency should look like in this world. And so rather than, retrofitting or crowbarring AI into existing workflows, which a lot of the bigger independents and network agencies have to do, we were able to kind of almost like get a blank sheet of paper and start to define what that looks like. And so I kind of break it into two world. So one is infrastructure, so looking at your underlying workflows and working out how you can build agentic systems to kind of bring those to life and automate a lot of the heavy lifting. And then the other one is like custom software, so how can you use AI and the power of Claude Code and Cursor to build like custom tools to make your services that you're giving to clients that much more effective. So maybe I can bring that to life because there was like a lot of buzzwords in there.
That's good. Yeah.
So an example would be, look, what does every like small growing agency need? It needs a new business arm that is absolutely whirring. And so we've essentially like codified our kind of brains of the experts that live within our organisation, be it our VP of Performance or VP of Ops or our MD, myself, and try to get that into a task that has almost been, written down in stone. And then anytime we have a new business meeting, we can drop in the name of the client, the name of their brand, and it will automate the sort of the creation synthesis of a bunch of very interesting information that arms us with like what we need to go into that intro call. And then when we go into that intro call, we take the AI minutes in Notion, and then when we come off that intro call, those will automatically go into another task, which will start to build out a proposal. That proposal goes into the hands of the MD or myself, and we can start to edit that, change that, modify that. And then when we present that proposal, again, we take the minutes from that. Those minutes from the proposal meeting will then form into like a statement of work. It can form into an MSA. It will automatically build out a Slack channel. It will build out the Google Drive, which houses all those documents. So what we've tried to do is be like, right, this is a perfect workflow. And then what are the bits that are repeated every single time? And then how can we automate that? And the aim being that the people within the team just have more time to do what they're really, really good at, which basically drives the value for the clients rather than spend the time researching the documents or building a Slack channel or.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is like truly AI native stuff. This isn't just you've bolted on and you use Claude to do a few different pieces.
Well, exactly.
This is you are living in an AI powered system.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, it's been so fascinating because when I founded it in February, I was swooped into these Reddit forums and LinkedIn threads, and it was all a little bit overwhelming. And I feel like I'm starting to see the wood from the trees now, where you start to play with these tools and you start to understand where are they actually adding value. And one of the really interesting things that we've done more recently, which is fascinating, I think most businesses will move to doing this, is because we're so fascinated by sort of these AI minutes, which we take in Notion, every single meeting that we have, be it client or internal, is minuted. We then have an overarching, what we call AMP bot, which pulls all of those together, builds a summary, pushes that into 11 Labs, and then every morning at 7 a.m. we get a little podcast that's posted to our Slack that we can listen to. And so I was off on Monday, having a well-deserved little holiday. I came back on Tuesday, listened to the podcast that got posted to Slack at 7 a.m, and I could quickly catch up with what happened yesterday, what the team was up to. And it's little things like that which you start to feel, okay, that's an actual tangible benefit, you see?
Yeah. So that just fills you in on what's happened at Restless.
Yeah, the day before, yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
It's cool.
I like that,
Yeah.
Amazing. So amongst it all, being AI native, you still have humans working for you. It's not all automated.
We do still have humans. I mean, our whole premise is, let's try and work out what AI is really, really good at. Let's try and work out what humans are really, really good at. And let's have technology be the force multiplier across that. And I think, like I said, back in Feb when I founded this, I was overwhelmed, and I think the whole commentary was fear-based, And we were talking about this a little bit before, wasn't it? It was just like the industry is going through change, and whether that be because of AI or other broader kind of macroeconomic changes, people are at risk of job cuts, and that's all lent to this kind of fairly scary narrative. But I do genuinely believe that technology is the force multiplier, and so what we're trying to do is, like I said, work out what AI is really, really good at, which is pattern recognition. It's synthesizing the signal amongst vast amounts of data, and then the aim is to try and put that into the hands of experts so they have more time. So the example being with Antenna, which is our kind of custom software, it pulls in data packs, be it client data, customer interviews, brand surveys. It pulls data from Reddit threads and LinkedIn and Instagram comments, TikTok comments. We pay for third-party data sets. So we have this vast amount of context that sits within Antenna, and then it surfaces insights around who our clients' customers are, what their wants are, what their needs are, what their desires are. And so we put that in the hand of creative strategists. So rather than spending a day researching, they're armed with this information the minute they kind of come into the office, and then they can start to use that to come up with better ideas, more personalised ideas, things that are genuinely going to make a difference.
Amazing. So it's the human touch remains essential in this for you as well.
If anything, it matters more. I think, like I said, AI is really good at pattern recognition. It's about looking at all that information and finding kind of what the average is. And I think creativity is about kind of deviating away from the mean. It's about breaking that. And so I do think that they need to work together. AI comes together, it surfaces all the information, it puts it in the hand of the creative strategist, and then they use that to find a meaningful truth or something that resonates with someone, and they use that to kind of sort of leapfrog off of and use that as a springboard to kind of jump off with new ideas.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of discussion and, like you said, fear about what AI means for creative jobs. That Claude can make you a perfectly serviceable bit of creative, but for me, it's finding that balance is really important between using the AI to kind of supercharge what we can do in the background while leaving human creativity and human oversight as this, it's not even the final layer. It's it is just augmenting what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it got a bad rep as well early on because everyone thought AI, they thought Gen AI, they thought slop, and and granted, because some of it was absolutely atrocious, but I think what we're trying to focus on now is like there's absolutely a place, I think, for Gen AI, but really what we're focusing on is bringing AI much earlier in that workflow into like the creative strategy, the synthesis, the planning, and then you have an idea, and then you may well bring that idea to life through our in-house production team. It might go through to a creator, or indeed it might go through to our Gen AI studio, and you bring those concepts to life in that way. But I think it's more about finding the value earlier on in that workflow.
Yeah, it's that, it's the insights that you can get so quickly. And like this, I'm fascinated by this podcast that's being synthesized for you. I think that's amazing. What an interesting use of it for as a company.
It is fascinating. And if I maybe bring it to life for one of the beauty brands that we're working for example. So a big part of what we did, I said, Antenna is our custom software, and we built that. It is a creative intelligence platform, and it pulls in these various different data packs. It has that context. And then we can start to understand like the wants, needs of these different personas. So for a beauty client that we are working with, we can start to kind of click into various different personas and understand the language they used, their key objections, the things that they were driving. We could see actually that one of the personas, I think, was like a spa goer or an active spa goer. We could actually see that they felt that the price point was a little bit high, and that actually it felt like a bit more of a luxury that they would use on a one-off. But we could also see that, like, because of the cost of living and the cost of everything going up, they were less likely to go to an in-person spa at the weekend. And so the concept that the creative strategists came up with was actually more, can we reframe this around having a spa-like experience at home and make this feel like something that you can do for yourself rather than having to go and pay for a spa every month or so, or get your hair done or look at your nails. So reframing that concept a little bit more to talk directly to those personas.
Yeah, so it takes the insights, takes the personas, and then you can bring your the human creative strategy spin to it.
Yeah, and I think too often, this is fairly controversial, but creative directors have had, I guess, an idea that they've wanted to bring to life. They've kind of pinned that to an insight and they've run off, and perhaps they've run off in the wrong direction, and therefore you're coming up with content that maybe doesn't land with these specific personas or segments. And I think the key now is aggregate all that information, really try to understand these different personas. And we're at a point now where we've built these synthetic personas so you can start to talk to them in a chat-like instance, right, to test concepts, ideas, hooks, and almost like start to test these things before you even spend any media. And I think that's the direction of travel.
Definitely. You did mention slop, and I think that's an important part for the creative industry. It's always an important discussion to have, especially you're running an agency. How can brands use it properly? I've seen a lot of Gen AI crap, real crap ads that have been put out because they can. And I think it's the old Jurassic Park thing, whether they were so occupied as to whether they could, they didn't stop to think whether they should.
That's a great analogy.
It's always comes to mind when I think about AI slop and people jumping in. How cautious should brands be, and what considerations they need around using AI for their creative?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's one it's more of a theoretical debate that we discuss at length in the office. My feeling is good content is good content, right? And I think there was a period 6 months ago where people with a discerning eye were trying to work out whether it was AI or whether it was real, and they would cast aspersions over whether it was good or bad purely based on that. I think now good content is good content, and AI and Gen AI is at a point now where it can deliver incredible creative, but it's a skill. We have an AI filmmaker that works at Restless who brings these concepts to life through sort of Gen AI video production. And it's a skill, right? Yeah. And I think there still is a real quality that's needed, a QA. There needs to be a creative strategist who's writing a very informed brief that goes to that production team, and to make sure that what they have in their brain is brought to life, whether it be through a real-life set or whether it be Gen AI. So my direct answer to that is I feel really quite strongly that good content is good content, and it just needs a discerning eye, whether that be on the client side or at the agency, to make sure that the output is up to the standard that's required.
Yeah, not just the quick, we can make this in 5 minutes, let's check it out and replace our entire media plan. It's just it needs to be thought through. But like you say, it can, it's compared to even where it was 6 months ago. Yeah. It's in a different ballpark now.
I mean, it works both ways. I mean, for some of our clients, we've uploaded their full product suite, all of their product photography, the specs of all of their product. And so now quite quickly, we can start to build, come up with a concept, and if it is like product-based photography, we can bring that to life in the matter of minutes and hours, and it looks beautiful. It really does look beautiful. But it's a skill that you need to be able to do that well, and it requires, I guess, a fluency with all of the different kind of LLMs of choice.
Yeah. So AI native agency.
Yeah.
I have a lot of discussions about AI, and the upshot is always we don't know what's coming in the next 6 months, never mind the next 5 years. So I can't really ask you about the next 5 years for Restless, but what are you most excited about for the business, for the industry, and how do you see it progressing?
Oh, real good question. What am I most excited about? Look, I think we're in a world where, God, dare I say it, I think a lot of the kind of activation of media has been somewhat automated. So a big chunk of attention is captured by these walled gardens. They all have automated bidding strategies now, whereby they will find your audience for you. I mean, Mark, his words, Zuckerberg was, you put money in the top, and it'll come out the bottom. It's kind of scary. So, look, the reality is we live in that world, and I think where I'm at now is creative essentially becomes the new targeting, and that is informed by insights. And I think we could start to get to a world where we genuinely could get towards like real personalised creative, where we're seeing, some of our clients are able to create across, high fidelity, high production content, mid-fi creator-led content, and low-fi sort of static content. They're able to generate anywhere between 50 and 100 of these assets a month that talk to 50 different personas, right? I just think it's fascinating. And so I think where again, I haven't got a crystal ball, but I think where we can start to get to is we'll start to be able to build these sort of beautiful feedback loops whereby we come up with these ideas based on our understanding of the persona, we generate personalised creative, we run that through these kind of different media channels. We have APIs back in from Google or from Meta or from TikTok, and then we start to almost reverse engineer why that creative worked or why it didn't, and then start to kind of iterate as time goes by. And so I'm quite excited to start to move towards sort of personalised media.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, what's the answer about?
What's the answer about? That is a very good question. So ants work in a colony. Ants have distributed intelligence. They are incredibly powerful. And what I find so interesting, I talked about distributed intelligence, but you have basically specialists that work within the colony, but they kind of communicate, and so they kind of work as a whole. And what we've tried to do is find that analogy with agents. We genuinely think building out a whole host of specialised agents that can work together through this distributed intelligence to push things forward, I think is quite phenomenal. It's also just a cheeky little mascot, isn't it?
It caught my attention. I was on the working assumption it was just an anagram of your name.
Oh, anyway, I like that.
I
mean, if Restless goes well, I'll change my name. There you go.
Well, I've been put back and given a far better answer than expected for that one. Nat, that was an absolute pleasure, mate.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All good.